Okay, so this is my first video. I'm decided to make these videos to kind of talk about my journey. For some of you who do know me, I was diagnosed on January 2nd, 2019 with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I decided to kind of make these videos to kind of talk about my experience through this, my thoughts, kind of everything that happens. Like I said, January 2nd, 2019, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. When I look back at it now, I do kind of see some symptoms that I may have had. Not symptoms that would make me think that I have cancer, but kind of knew that something was wrong. So it kind of started back in summer of 2018. I noticed when I would drink alcohol, whether it was beer, liquor, or wine, I would get these really bad chest pains, and then the chest pain kind of would shoot down my arm on the left side, and it would just hurt for so long, and then it would just go away after a while. But as the summer progressed, I noticed that the chest pains were kind of getting worse, and it was adding on more symptoms, kind of like I would get the chest pain, the arm pain, but then I was also getting a blurred vision, felt like my hearing was fading, nausea, and then I almost felt like I was gonna pass out. So I started to get a little worried, and I kind of, would look up things on Google. And when I looked up stuff, it kind of always just came back to like having an allergy to alcohol. So I started thinking, oh, it's just an allergy. Maybe I should just stop drinking, which I did. But I was still kind of curious, and I kind of wanted to get a doctor's perspective on it, because maybe, maybe it was an allergy. So that was one thing that I started noticing. But then on Thanksgiving, I noticed a lump on the left side of my throat. And I kind of asked my other family members if they had anything on their, like any lumps or anything, and they were like, no. And so I kind of got a little worried, and then I was like, okay, maybe I should go see a doctor. So I would say maybe around the beginning of December, I set up an appointment to see my primary care doctor to kind of talk about everything that was happening to me. When I went to her and told her about the alcohol symptoms, she, like everybody else, kept telling me that she thought it was an allergy. So she told me to take an allergy pill and an antacid before I started drinking to see if it helped. But when I told her about the lump in my throat, she was a little worried, so she told me to set up a CT scan, to go get a scan to see if we could find out what it was. So I set that up, and I would say about 2 weeks later, I went in for that. When the results came back, it said that I had a small benign cyst on the right side of my throat, and that I had a large vascular mass on the left side that kind of was coming upwards, but that they didn't know if it was benign or malignant, so they wanted to, of course, do further testing. When I asked her opinion on what she thought it was, she did say that they kind of had a feeling that it was Hodgkin's, but that they wouldn't be able to tell me exactly until we did more testing. So after that, the next step was to go get a fine needle aspiration biopsy. So with that, they stick a needle into the lump, and then they pull out different tissue and stuff to be tested to see if they can find out more on what it was. So I'd say about a week after the CT scan, I went in for that. When I got those back, that took about a week or two, and she called me in to the office, and I was with my mom, and she said that it was what they thought it was, Hodgkin's. They hadn't found out what stage it was when I went there, and she wouldn't be able to tell me because it wasn't her department. So of course I would have to go see an oncologist for more information. So when I went in for that appointment, it was a very long appointment. It was about like 2 hours, and the doctor kind of just gave us like a lot of information at once. It was kind of hard to like pay attention, because it was like, you're still processing that you have cancer, and then you're like thinking all these what ifs and what am I supposed to do and all stuff like that. But she kind of gave like a packet, and it was like, the different drugs that I would be getting for chemo, the side effects of it, support groups, like the next appointments I would have to do, and then, you know, information about having to take off work because I wouldn't be able to work. So for Hodgkin's lymphoma, my chemo drug is the abbreviation ABVD. I'm not really sure how to pronounce each of them, but because of my chemo is going to be a very strong dose, so I wouldn't be able to work because your immune system is pretty much wiped out through the drugs, and, you know, being around people and germs is just not good for you. So she was like telling me how I was gonna have to take off work. For this chemo, the most they will do is 6 months, and then of course they can do less. They don't try to go over the 6 months, and it's every other week you go in for treatment. So it's the 1st and the 15th. It's like every other week. So she kind of told me about that, and then told me about the side effects, about like hair loss, you know, loss of appetite. I guess basically there's so many side effects of things that happen, and then they tell you about like what you can do to control the side effects and stuff like that. And then one other thing that was the big decision for me was chemo kills basically everything in your body, so there was a possibility that it would kill the eggs in me. And so if I wanted to have kids, she was telling me that I would need to think about doing an egg retrieval to take out my eggs to save them. So with that, it was a big decision for me because I didn't know what to do, because I know that it could be really expensive, and I was a little worried that it'd be so expensive that I wouldn't be able to do it. And for me, since I'm so young, I'm only 23 right now, so of course eventually someday I'm gonna want to have kids. So she gave me a referral to a fertility place to go talk to them to find out the process, how much it would be, and my options. So we set up that appointment, and then we also had to set up a PET scan so that we could find out how much the cancer had spread. And then we also had to set up a bone marrow biopsy and to put in my port. So first thing I think we did was we went to the fertility people, talked to them. They kind of told me about the process. So what happens is it's typically 10 to 12 days. You get injections through your that you give to yourself in your stomach. There's different drugs, and I'll eventually have another video on like that whole process and everything that happened with that. After that appointment, I had, like I said, I went to get the bone marrow biopsy and my chemo port placement. I did those both at the same time because they said they would be able to sedate me one time instead of having to be sedated to do one and then come back and forth. So when I went for the PET scan, that was a very long process. You kind of have to go sit in a room. They inject you with this fluid stuff into your veins so that when you go in the machine, it will like light up. But the thing that makes it so long is you sit in the room for an hour and wait for the like whatever drug they put in your body to like go everywhere, and you have to like sit still, and you can't move and you can't talk. You just have to sit there for an hour, which felt like forever. And then you have to go sit in the machine, and it goes in and out for like 30 minutes, and it's the longest thing. It was torture. But yeah, so when I went for that and I got my results back probably like 3 days later, and that's when she said it was stage 4. For me, the reason that it is stage 4 is so it's that large bulky mass that they saw, but there was a single spot on my lungs. So for Hodgkin's lymphoma, if you ever have cancer that is touching an organ that is not a lymph node, you are automatically bumped up to stage 3 or stage 4. And so because I had that spot, they automatically made me stage 4. They think that after probably like 1 to 3 chemo treatments that the spot should be gone off my lungs and it should go down. So that's good. Going forward, I'll have videos talking about after my first chemo, like I'll talk about the fertility treatment, stuff like that, and everything in between. But right now, it'll be 6 months, and I'll keep you guys updated on everything that happens.